Why are you pointing at me? Want to let him talk first?
Well, if you want to talk, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know the procedure.
All right.
Fire.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Revival Survival, the brand new podcast where we talk about franchise revivals, reboots, and reimaginings. I'm Nathan Grayjack.
And I'm Eric Sajak.
No relation. All right.
Oh. Disappointing.
On the show, we want to explore history, canon, zeitgeist, the changing culture and media landscape, as well as what it means to live in a post-original content world. That's my scripted part.
It sounds sad when you say it like that. It really does.
It is a little sad, but there's a lot of good stuff, too. I think it's really exciting. The premiere episode today is going to be about Star Trek, a show that's had many iterations and many revivals. It started off, of course, with the original series, and then had sort of a revival with the Next Generation that lasted through Enterprise, and then we
Good
had
show.
What's that?
Good show.
The Great Show.
Yes.
And then it went with another kind of reimagining with the J.J. Abrams movies. I wanted to let our friends at Red Letter Media explain a little bit about what the current status of Star Trek is.
Despite being the best of the Kelvin trilogy, Star Trek Beyond's low box office returns has essentially put a nail in the coffin of that franchise. Now, though, we have Star Trek in the form of Discovery, a dark, violent, and angry show with moody lighting and mysterious characters. And to put the cherry on top of everything, Quentin Tarantino is currently producing a new violent R-rated Star Trek.
All right. So what led to this latest revival? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Boy, howdy. I mean, it's a natural continuation of the series, I feel. I don't have a problem with it. Some people say, is it a continuation? Is it an Abrams continuation? Doesn't matter, is my point.
They've been really adamant that it is not in the Kelvin universe.
I know, I hear that all the time. And to some extent, I can understand that. I mean, everything's different, or at least a lot of it, the ship design especially. But in my opinion, the ship design falls more within the Star Trek canon than Kelvin timeline.
Sure. I mean, Enterprise definitely had more advanced technology in it than the original series did. That's just part of reality. I mean,
Yeah.
Technology has advanced more than we thought it would have back in the 60s.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You know, you can't make a futuristic ship look like what the TOS Enterprise looked like and have it be
Right.
believable to modern audiences.
Right, exactly. I mean, there's always going to be that next generational leap of technology that they're going to want to showcase it, and that's not the point. I mean, yeah, you can take opinion with the uniforms or whatever, but I feel like that's always going to happen. It's just every leap. TNG was so much different than TOS.
Every single iteration has been different. Everyone's been criticized for it.
Exactly. It will never end, and I feel like that's a good thing.
One of the biggest things I want to talk about real quick is that obviously a big difference with this latest iteration is that it's on streaming now.
Yeah.
It's the first one on streaming. It's been a kind of a big deal for a lot of people.
And I cannot wait to unsubscribe.
Okay. So we're just going to finish the season and then unsubscribe to
I'm
All
pretty
Access?
sure, yeah. Other than me being able to watch I Love Lucy, I don't really see the point of it. So.
Okay. And then just take it back up next season probably.
Yep. I understand why they did it, but I'm ready to watch Roseanne because it's going to be on ABC. I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
But this was weird. The $5 a month is okay. It's not bad, but the ads are kind of killing me.
Yeah.
But I understand. I mean,
that's my issue with Hulu too. It's like you pay for it and then you have to watch ads.
yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But is Hulu? Is it $10 or is it? Do they do the 5?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Because yeah,
I'm pretty sure they have a tiered system where they have. I think you can get it without ads, just like All Access if you pay more.
okay. Because I like the fact they give you a choice. Like Netflix doesn't give you a choice, but at the same time, it's like if I'm paying for it, there shouldn't be no ads there.
I mean, I guess people said that about cable when it first came out.
True. Very true.
A long time ago, cable
Very
TV
true.
first came out. I was like, you're paying for it, you don't need ads, and then now it's obviously.
Like, wait a minute.
I guess it's just how it kind of evolves.
Yeah.
So what else is different about the show? It's obviously a much more diverse cast.
Very much more diverse, yeah. And to be honest, I like the gay thing. I like that there's like we never see that usually. So it's like, oh my god. But I don't really feel like their chemistry was the greatest in the world.
Stamets and Dr. Culbert.
Culbert, yeah. especially Dr. Culbert. I've seen him on some things. He's not the greatest actor in the world, in my opinion.
Okay.
But so it kind of drew me out of it. Like, I can't remember what else I've seen him on, but I don't know if it was Rent or if it was something else that he was in.
Stamets is on Rent.
Stamets is on Rent, but his boyfriend or his husband, I guess. I don't remember what I've seen him on, but maybe it was like Queer as Folk or something like that. I can't remember. I have to look it up. But it just, his acting, it draws me out of the universe because I'm reminded of that. I guess, I don't know. It's weird. I mean, he's a good actor. He's okay. But,
Okay.
but that's why when he died, I was like, okay, where are they going with this? So spoilers.
Yeah. Yeah. So for anyone listening to this, we just watched the last of the Mirror Universe episodes past his prologue. Is that what it's
Yes, I believe, yep.
So that's kind of where we are. It's the end of January. If you're not caught up to that point, there will be spoilers. This is a spoiler zone. So anyway, with diversity, lots of different kinds of diversity. Yeah. Obviously, we got some gay characters. That's great. Yeah. Lead character is a woman of color. That's a first. That's awesome. Yep. There's also more aliens as main characters on the bridge and stuff, which I think makes more sense. You think of the Federation being this massive interplanetary alliance, yet time and again, the main characters are all human. It's like, huh.
Right.
So it's kind of nice to see Saru as second officer. I know we've got second officers that are aliens, obviously.
Right.
But, there's also a few others that are in and out. Klingons take a big role, which is really great.
Yep.
And then also there's, Captain Giorgio, an Asian woman. I think that's, considering the demographics of the planet Earth, the fact that so few humans have been Asian is a little telling. Especially with regards not just the people, but the names and the culture. Yeah. So most of the ships have been American or Anglo names. And now we have, the USS Shinzo, which is really great. Kind of okay, this seems a little more realistic to me to what the future probably will actually be.
And still with the USS moniker, too. Like, I believe I've looked this up before and it's been explained to me, but they call everything USS, United States ship. Is what it means to us. Yeah. Is that what it means in Star Trek? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that's a no, but I can't remember what the yes is.
Yeah. United something, I'm sure. I don't know.
But just a carryover.
Yeah.
Does actually have any meaning anymore.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, that's good. The Shenzhou and Captain Philippa. The weird thing to me is I always assumed that they didn't have aliens or certain types of aliens in command positions because of the fact that the way they reacted to things or it was different than the way we would have liked them to react or something like that, so like
seems very racist.
No, I guess, but like if you're commanding a ship, you don't want something to go wrong that you couldn't control in training or something like that. So like, what's his name? Saru, because he's very not xenophobic, but he's very
scared of everything.
He's a scaredy cat, basically. and the thing is as the season has progressed, he has changed, and I like that. I like that he's not scared of everything. He's actually taking command, and then all of a sudden, bam, he's the captain.
So I would argue that as first officer, his job is to question everything in sort of a way and be a little bit scared and cautious. Of course. Whereas when he becomes commander of the ship, acting captain, he kind of takes that role.
Of course. I completely agree. Yes. But I think it was more of his character development in the sense that every conversation he had was always, oh, my species is scared of this, and my species is scared of that. And I have these things up my head that tell me I'm scared,
Threat ganglia.
Yeah.
It was laid on a little thick in the first couple episodes. That speech about my species is bred to do one thing. Like, really one thing only. Like, apparently you taste good, so that's like, it's more than one thing.
Kelpian, that's what it is. Yeah. Kelpian. So he's named after a plant, too, so,
His species, yeah. That's a good point.
So, I don't know. I like I said, I do love his development. I love that he went from second officer to first officer to, captain now, basically. And I feel like he's taking the position well. Now, we really didn't see a lot of the captain because it kind of ended the episode that way. But the next two episodes, I think, will be very interesting.
So I want to go back to, you said about the history of Starfleet not having non-humans in command. Do you feel like Federation's had that's been intentional?
In a way, I do. Obviously, it's the all glowing Federation where everyone's equal. But when it comes to command of ships, I feel like they're not. I mean, just look at the TNG episode where Data was given a command of a ship.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone was against it. And the
His
crew,
first officer, I think it was really like,
Yeah.
you don't care about human lives.
Exactly.
No one would suggest that a Klingon would be a good ship's counselor or that a Borellian could be an engineer. They're just not suited for those positions. By the same token, I don't think an android is a good choice to be captain.
And I can understand that. I mean, the crew itself, we don't really know how Starfleet felt because it was more of a Captain Picard said, okay, do this. So I can understand that. But, I mean, how many episodes have we seen an alien in command of a ship? I can't think of many. And if it was, most likely it was a science vessel or was something not necessarily that important to things.
That's a good point. Yeah, you'll see a Vulcan in charge once in a while.
But a Vulcan makes sense. A Vulcan is, logical and distinct, and they've survived for how many years. They've had captains. Andorians might make more sense too. I think I've seen an Andorian captain a couple times.
Yeah, we've seen them.
Yeah, we've seen them.
Usually what it is
Right.
like they'll be on the view screen for a second and then they're gone.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
There's never been a main character who's a
Right.
character who's an alien, obviously, and not that many other senior officers. Besides, I mean, you can name them on probably a hand. Like you got Spock and then Data.
Data.
Let's see.
second
Let's
officer.
go through them all.
Yeah.
I mean,
Even Beta Z to some extent, I guess.
Oh, that's true.
She was what? Fourth in command? Third in command?
I don't know.
Fourth in command.
Was she?
I think so. Yeah, it was her, Riker, Data, or no, it was Picard, Riker, Data.
She was above Geordi?
I think so, because that's why she's on the bridge. Like she holds
Well,
up.
she's on the bridge because she's a counselor.
Well, yeah, but remember she got her rank of.
I remember she tested at
her
one time.
command staff to commander or whatever.
Yeah,
So I
you
thought,
can be commander and not be.
well, of course you can, but I thought in the episode they explained that she was. Maybe not. I don't remember.
I can't remember. Someone will tell us maybe. So anyway, going through though, you got Kira, but she's not Starfleet
Right.
in DS9.
Right,
And
yeah.
then
And even then, they don't trust her. She's
True.
in command of only her stuff, except for when they need her to do something else. But if it ever comes to Starfleet, she doesn't command them.
oh, absolutely.
Once in a while, maybe.
Well, it makes sense because she's not a Starfleet officer.
True.
I get that. My point is, how many Starfleet higher-ranking officers are non-human or maybe Vulcan?
Right.
Because they're easy. Their makeup's easy. So
Right.
they.
Exactly.
I feel like that's
it's
kind of
all
part
the
of the reason.
makeup. Yeah. And, I mean, ironically, the president of the Federation was an alien. So
Yes.
take of that what you will. But
So is the Federation more progressive than its paramilitary? They say it's not military, but let's face
right.
it, Starfleet's military
Of
structure.
course it is, yeah.
Then they're kind of the Starfleet.
Right.
Is Starfleet more behind than the Federation? Maybe.
I would
Federation
say
more of an old boys club.
I would say it could also be a political move. Oh, look at us, we're inclusive. We have
Sure.
a president that's an alien. Of course. I think it comes down to that command structure. It's the admirals and the people that make up the decisions say no, and or it's the makeup people saying no.
So the real name explanation and the canon explanation, and I guess it kind of makes sense when you think about it, because Starfleet predates the Federation.
Yeah.
It was
Of
originally an
course.
Earth institution,
Right.
so that could be part of it. Let's see other differences about this show that make it different than the old ones. One thing that's different is that it's more serialized as opposed to
Yes.
being episodic.
Do you like that?
I think it's fine. I don't prefer one or the other particular. Some people say it's not Star Trek, which I disagree with.
Yes.
We've seen serialized Star Trek in
course.
DS9 and especially in Enterprise, and it
Yes.
worked out just fine.
Yeah.
I think the function of its presentation, it being a streaming show, you're going to want to
Right.
watch full episodes and it gets you into it. I just read an article recently about how DS9's kind of in a way improved in its watchability now that it's streaming available on Netflix and All Access. It's kind of more fun to watch and get hooked and go through the whole DS9 because it's got those serialized elements to it.
Yeah.
It's binge worthy.
It is, because it's very hard to watch here and there on TV. If you don't know the
Right.
story, you get so far behind.
Whereas TNG is more that like comfort food. It's
Yeah.
it's like one episode, you like it and you're done. You know, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with either of them.
Right.
Another thing that's talked about a lot already, of course, is that Discovery is darker.
Yes.
Both in its mood lighting and then just the content is obviously darker. There's more fighting, there's more gore, there's more just darker themes to it.
Oh, yeah.
So do you think that goes against kind of the Roddenberry vision of like a ideal future, or is that just this is during war, so it's different?
True. I mean, some people say that. I've seen a lot of articles that say it's definitely not Roddenberry, which okay, I can understand. But the other side of that is Roddenberry. They were just discussing it on one of the Comic-Con panels that they had. What was her name?
Marina
Sirtis. There you go. She was discussing how because she was the girl and she was the pretty girl, she had to wear all the costumes that were short and showed cleavage. And I love Roddenberry's vision, but some of that, it's still. And then finally, after how many seasons? 6 seasons, she got to wear a uniform.
Yeah, after he died.
Way after he died, yeah.
So I actually love that episode when I forget the name of the captain that came in and took over the Enterprise when Jellicoe. Thank you. Captain Jellicoe came in when Picard was on his There Are Four Lights mission.
There are 4 lights.
And he said, "Why aren't you wearing a uniform?" I was like, "Thank you." I've been asking that question for 5 to 6 seasons now.
She's on the bridge with no uniform.
Right, and then amazingly, she stuck to it for the rest of the series, which is really great. Yeah. She started wearing her actual Starfleet uniform.
Right, and then in the interview, she was actually explaining. She's like, and I said, yes, thank you. I wanted that for so long, But then she's like, well, why wouldn't they do that before? It was all because she was the pretty one, and she had to wear all the pretty stuff, and Doctor didn't have to wear all that because they didn't necessarily think of her as pretty, or something like that. So.
Oh yeah, and also the contrast with Tasha Yar.
Right.
I remember reading that there was a thing about like there's too many characters, one of them has to go. Is it gonna be Deanna or is it gonna be Tasha?
Right.
And it's like, okay, which ones? It was kind of came to that sexuality came into it too. And I was actually reading an article just the other day. Maybe it was even yesterday. I was doing some getting ready for this podcast, and Roddenberry had this kind of weird obsession with it. Like there were some early drafts where Deanna Troi was going to have like 4 boobs and weird stuff like that. I don't know, like, come on, man. I mean, look at the original series. It's obviously it had a long way to go in terms of feminism in the early iterations, and it also made a lot of great leaps. I mean, we saw a lot of women on the bridge. They had command. There was good things also. Obviously. The first interracial kiss on television, that was huge. So it was great in a lot of ways. Also had a lot of long ways to go. And we've seen it get gradually better as it goes on, which is good.
Do you see an overt sexual exposition on Discovery? I can't think of something. Like their uniforms are all the same.
Oh, have I seen something that's like sexist on the show?
Overtly so. Overtly. I mean, like they would be in TOS, but I feel like they've desexualized Burnham. Michael Burnham. I mean, immediately when you hear that, like, wait a minute, nah.
I thought that was actually kind of a nice nod at like the fluidity of gender and the a bash at the rigidity of gendered names. I was watching this review of someone go over Discovery, and he was like, "It's really confusing when they say Michael." I'm like, "Who are they talking about? It's not a woman's name." And I'm like, "Really? Like." How narrow is your view on gender that you can't identify Michael as a woman? That you think about it for 10 seconds every time. I mean, enough people that are non-binary or gender non-conforming, you just kind of it rolls off your back, I guess, after a while.
I mean, to me, I immediately went to Vulcan. Vulcan, they'd have male names for females a lot. Like if you watch Wrath of Khan, they call
seen it.
I can't Kirstie Alley, whatever her name is.
Oh, Mr. Savick.
Mr. Savick, yeah.
Well, that's more of a Starfleet tradition. I mean, Sir, Mr. is very much a.
Well, Sir, yes.
Sir, definitely.
I
think they were playing. That's more of a Starfleet thing. I think.
Vulcan. Well, I don't know because I read an article that said that saying Mr. or Sir to a Vulcan is preferable to saying she or her or ma'am. Like Vulcans prefer you to say the same pronoun for everything, and that's why they always did it. I don't know if that's true or not, but I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense. It's a Vulcan cultural thing, and they're actually taking account of her cultural identity.
I was not aware of that.
I have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure that's what she said, or he said. I think it was yeah, exactly. I think Spock was the one discussing it. I can't remember. I'll have to look it up.
Spock or Nimoy?
I don't remember.
Was this in-universe explanation or out of universe explanation?
It was an interview, but it was about the movie.
Okay, so it was out of universe.
Because people were asking, like, why did they call him Mr. Savick? It's a girl. Why?
To me, I guess it wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't, but I believe that's why they gave that a cultural.
I'm pretty sure I read an explanation for that same thing years ago, too, and it was that it was Starfleet, and that was just a military tradition.
Very, very, very possible. But when they said Michael Burnham, I immediately went, okay. Vulcan again.
Sure.
So that just because she was raised on Vulcan,
sure,
to her it's natural.
And I know Janeway mentioned, like, I know it's tradition to call women sir in the first episode.
Right.
Yeah, but I never liked it, you know?
Yeah.
And Paris is like, so, ma'am? You know?
Right.
You can tell he's kind of weird by that because
Yeah.
it's not normal. And she said she prefers captain, ma'am
Right.
only in a pinch. And of course, then Paris still calls her ma'am, like, a minute after that, even though
Exactly.
she says in a pinch.
Right.
So,
But that's Paris. So I guess I have a question. Speaking of the differences, how about aesthetics, uniforms? How do you like them? Is my question. I want to ask every person I meet that loves Discovery if they love the uniforms.
I think the uniforms are good. I think they're representative of what a real paramilitary organization would look like.
Yeah.
The gender neutrality is good. They look professional. They don't look like pajamas, like a lot of
Yeah.
times they tend to. I think they're in line with Enterprise's vision.
Yeah.
Star Trek Enterprise, their uniforms. Now, does it make sense within the canon that, like, a couple years from now it's going to be TOS style? No.
Right. No.
But again, I think that's part of you have to suspend that a little bit and
Yeah, of course.
and just take TOS for what it is.
Again, see that's where the Calvin timeline, in my opinion, comes into question, because I could definitely see a jump from what they're wearing now to what they would in the Calvin timeline. More of a casual, they're not necessarily at war, and then they start changing the uniform that way or something, because it's very tight, it's very militaristic right now. I mean, even the shoes have the gold or silver trim, which a lot of people are going crazy over. Like, why are your shoes? Why would you make different shoes for everything?
I saw that too.
Which I guess I can understand, but I feel like it's natural. I keep thinking Calvin timeline, but I know I should.
I guess my thing is about the Calvin timeline, the J.J. Abrams movies, uniforms. The differences between those and the TOS uniforms, to me, is less a function of being a different timeline. Because how much is that one event really going to change fashion? Maybe. I don't know.
Sure, yeah.
It has more to do with the fact that it was made decades later.
Right.
And people just don't believe those old uniforms as being believable anymore. I think they did their best to make it look as much as possible like the old ones while still making it look a little bit more believable.
Yeah, and maybe
Modern.
even took a key from the Enterprise uniforms, like you said. I mean, maybe that was their natural transition from Enterprise to Discovery. Very possible. They also made it a point, though, to show...
It's a longer time between, like...
It
It's
is.
a pretty long gap.
It is, but if you follow that, it's like, it's a jumpsuit, basically, all the way up, which most of them are anyways, but a jumpsuit to basically snow pants is what they look like, not like thick like that, but they have the, the suspenders, and they go down, and then you put a coat over it, basically.
You're talking about the TNG era.
They have TNG
Voyager
had that. Yeah, Voyager.
You didn't seem to get the shirt off very often, but when they took
No.
the shirt off, it was like, I see what you mean now. It's
Exactly,
not
yeah.
snowflake. Overall, looking
Right.
to it. Okay, so opinions on how it's overall the show. How you feeling about it?
I'm liking it. I feel every new show I start, I have to take into account it's the first season. They have to
Right.
explain things. They have to get the story right. And then towards the end, they get the cliffhanger. Things start to make sense, and then it becomes a good show. Depending on what happens in the next 2 episodes, because if you saw the promo for it, I was explaining how Giorgio, because she's from the Terran timeline, that she's gonna come and save the Federation from the brink of annihilation, basically. And I don't know if I like that. Would the Federation use her technology? I mean, would
Tactics, I
the
think, is a bigger
tactics?
thing.
Because I'm sure she's gonna want to kill people.
Right. And I can see that, like, we're in a state of war, and she has these really, like, sinister and advanced tactics that can maybe turn the tide.
Right.
But my initial thing, and right away, when Burnham took her back, I was like, okay, like, I can see wanting to save her in that moment, but then you step back and think about it, like, she's completely evil.
Right.
I mean, she's not just like, yeah, she had that little, like, self-sacrificing thing, but that was really because she said she has no future.
Right.
She murdered so many people. I mean, what was all her titles? The whatever,
Of course.
whatever.
Yeah.
Like, she was awful. Like, she
Right.
tortured people and killed people. She has no place in the Federation.
I
Like,
mean,
period.
To be fair, they've never seen the Terran Empire. They don't understand how evil it is.
Burnham does,
Well, Burnham should. Yes, of course.
and she's the one that saved her.
And she's the one who
I was
saved
like,
her, yeah. Just because it was my old captain, and I don't want her to die, And I mean, but the atrocities that she's capable of are going to be astronomical, in my opinion. I'm hoping that they sum up the end of the season well and figure out what they're going to do with Giorgio, obviously. But then I'm thinking, okay, next season, what's going to happen? Is it going to be a continuation? They're still discussing whether or not they're going to change the entire universe? Weren't they like doing some sort of modular show where the first season looked completely different and was different than the second season?
Ever heard that?
Okay, because it's kind of like Black Mirror, where every episode is completely different from
I would hope that's not what it is.
I hope that's not what it is either, but I've heard discussion of that, and I don't know, because now I'm just starting to fall in love with Discovery, so I hope they don't change it. I don't know.
I would be very surprised if that's what happens.
Well, yes, I'm hoping
doubt
it
it.
doesn't, but I mean, what are your opinions on that?
I think it's definitely a good show. I think it definitely has a lot of good Star Trek things to it, and a lot of good things that, maybe it's not the same Star Trek that I fell in love with, but it still has a lot of good stuff too.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of really good looks at important issues. So I really liked when they went to Mirror Universe and Burnham had to struggle with this, like, what it's like to be a good person or a decent person. It's surrounded by so much evil.
Right.
And she had this pretty extensive, monologue, internal thought process of, how do I hold on? How do I keep being okay with the atrocities around me and playing the part of being complicit in them and ordering them and, and still hold on to her humanity, and her Federation ideals. I thought that was really powerful. Most Mirror episodes have been more like, almost more played for comedy, which is fine.
Yeah.
Or played for like, oh, look how bad they are, but not to like, how does it change a person to be in there? So I thought that was really fascinating. There's been a lot of other like Tyler's look at, and we learned it was more than that, but initially, especially, it was presented as like PTSD. Yeah. He was struggling with all these flashbacks. He had been apparently raped by the Klingon. Right. So it was like, when do you see that these type of really, really, really serious issues being taken on by a Star Trek show? Mm-hmm. I thought that was really powerful. And the kind of thing that modern television can do and start this conversation. So I was really appreciative of that.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Going back to some things that are different, I noticed that a lot of people have been upset about the holograms being used instead of view screens.
Yes.
So I was upset about that too, honestly.
Yeah.
But I noticed in this latest episode, all of a sudden they're used in view screens.
Yep. Yeah, go figure.
I was like, what happened to the holograms?
I mean, on Discovery too, but on the other ships they're only using this view screen. Is that in the universe that they only have view screens, maybe?
Perhaps.
I mean,
it seemed odd. And speaking of the view screen, what really seemed odd was, okay, so Stamets was able to see the mycelial network in his eyes while he was being, traveling through it. That made sense. Yeah. And then it's on the view screen too. Yeah. How the hell?
Yeah. You'd think they'd be able to navigate it.
How the hell were they seeing it on the view screen? That was a big problem for me. Right. A little things like that really get my goat.
And then his boyfriend was like leading him, or I don't think he was, but it was like his voice was leading him.
Yeah, I mean that's like his memory. Yeah, I was okay with that part.
I guess, yeah.
He wasn't really saying anything new. He was saying things that he heard before.
True, yeah. Follow the music or whatever.
And in this latest episode, we saw, I think, maybe why Spore Drive was discontinued. Because apparently, if you use it wrong, it can destroy the entire multiverse. So yeah. I guess that's why we don't see it anymore. I guess I'm starting to see that. That's my guess now.
I am completely okay with that.
Yeah. Let's not destroy the entire multiverse.
Right.
Thank you.
I love they're making strides like, we've always seen it, Quantum Slipstream Drive and all the other ones that they've made. But this one's just weird. It's like, it's fungus. And their explanation is that they're all connected throughout universi. Is that even quantumly possible? I mean, are they just making this up, or is it based in science? Or
I mean, is warp drive quantumly possible? I mean, you can go all day with that.
Well, I mean, warp drive to an extent could be possible. I mean, that's why it's always been science fiction, not science fantasy.
Exactly.
But I think this to me is jumping over that hurdle. It's Jesus. Can we think of it as a possible? I don't know. Let's make something up. So it's this fungus that connects out all of the universes.
Okay, so those of you listening, Eric did a swan hand motion as he's connecting above his head. Okay. I think there's definitely some interesting connections that are being made with the Mirror Universe episodes to current events, which has always been big on Star Trek. Yep. Did you notice I saw this. I couldn't wait to talk to you about it, but I didn't want to talk about it before we recorded because I wanted to
Okay.
be live. Did you notice Lorca do the Trump slogan, but he did mega instead of MAGA? Was I the only one that noticed that? He said,
I don't remember.
"Make the empire glorious again."
I didn't even make the connection. I'm sorry.
Right away, he said, "We can make the empire glorious again." And I was like, "Mega!"
Oh my god, I can't believe I missed that. Yes.
So then I started seeing all these other. So once I heard that, I was like, "Oh well, what else? What else is in there?" And he's talking about getting rid of non-Terrans and kicking
Right.
them out, making the species pure again. And I'm like, "Wow, making America white again." Like how many parallels?
Terran, yeah.
Yeah. Once I started seeing that, I was like, "Okay, so like they're comparing Trump to the Terran Empire."
Yeah.
This is great. I it wasn't banging over the head with it. It wasn't
Right.
like the latest episode of X-Files, which I can't wait for us to talk about, was the whole episode was one Trump joke after another. It was
Right.
It was hilarious, but it doesn't have the place in Star Trek. And it was this great subtle thing.
Huh.
Maybe it was even intended. I'm guessing it was.
I'm sure it was.
Because once I heard it, I thought right away, I was like, this is...
I mean, to me, that's what the Terrans are. You can't get away from it. They're very racist, xenophobic people.
Right.
But yeah, it makes sense. And to tip the hat to that, yeah, I could see it.
You know, looking at Twitter and things, looking for Star Trek hashtags, I'm surprised I didn't see any more like hashtag...
Make the Empire glorious again.
Yeah, mega.
You could see that. We could start it. Going back a little bit, what do you think of our introduction to Michael Burnham?
You mean in the first 2 episodes?
Yeah, like, did you like the way they took her character? Were you immediately drawn in by her character? Was it were you standoffish, or was it because it was a new episode or a new type of Star Trek? Or
Yeah, it's hard to tell because I was definitely getting acclimated with all of it.
Right.
I liked her relationship with Giorgio in the beginning, but did I like that she became a mutineer?
Yeah.
No. Like I was a little kind of like, what?
Yeah.
You know, it was the first domino that led to me being like, is this really even the Federation as I know it? You
Right.
know, where there's people being mutineers. Although I doubt that she's the only one ever. It seems kind of weird. And then,
Right.
you know, that really compounded for me when Lorca came on the scene. I was like, this guy is evil.
Right.
And he doesn't belong. Now we know that's why
Exactly.
he doesn't belong in the universe. But early on, though, with him, obviously more of the people than Lorca knew about the spore drive. The treatment of the water bear just seemed really out of place.
Yes, it did.
So I was really upset after that episode aired,
Yeah.
and they're abusing that poor animal. I was like, oh, this is Starfleet. This is not Starfleet. Anyway, as far as Michael goes, yeah, she added that. Once I got to know her a little better, I do like her as a character now.
Yeah, I think she's good,
but
yeah.
it took a little getting used to. I think just the way they did it with having the first 2 episodes be like a movie that kicks off the show.
Yeah.
If you think of it that way, like there's the movie, then there's the show.
Right.
You know, okay, that works. But as the first episode, it was jarring. It was hard.
It was
to get
very
into.
jarring. Yeah. I mean, did you like the fact that she was the adopted daughter, basically, of Sarek?
I thought that was cool.
It was cool. Okay. I'm interested to hear your opinion because
Yeah.
to me, I liked it, but at the same time, it was like, wow, but we never heard. It's like so many other stories we've heard where they change it and it's never mentioned in anything else except for this one season or this one series.
Yeah, that's an inherent problem with prequels. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just gonna come up. But I like playing with established lore. I like
Yeah.
getting to see more. Sarek was cool. I like him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The episode where they talked about the pain he had, where he chose Spock to go into the academy, the Vulcan
Yes.
Science Academy, over Michael, and then Spock rejected it anyway.
Yeah.
Like that was powerful.
It
I
was.
liked that.
That was, and just for his son to go into the academy. I mean, that was the gist of it, right? Yeah. So I mean,
And you got to see really the racism and xenophobia of the Vulcans there too.
exactly. Even though he's a ward of her, or she's a ward, or I mean, I don't. They said ward. I think he never really said you're my adopted daughter.
Yeah, I think that
It was always a distant adjective to it, you know. Yeah, I don't know. I like it, but I feel like they need to explore it a little more. That's why I'm wondering if they're gonna at some point bring in Spock.
I've heard producers say they're not going to have Spock anytime.
Right.
You know,
Which that makes sense, but
who knows? But you know, if the show stays on for 7 seasons, who knows then? You know what I mean?
Maybe.
But there's no plans.
it would be weird. But at the same time, might give some legitimacy to it. Like, oh, they're brother and sister. They've known each other for a long time. They're not like distant. It'd be interesting to see, anyways.
I wanted to do a Twitter check here and look at some of the things that I'm coming up with. Star Trek hashtag or other, Star Trek hashtag Star Trek Discovery is kind of the one that trends the most, and see what people are saying about it. Kind of check in a little bit. So a lot of these are really dominated because there's so few people hashtagging Star Trek Discovery apparently. So many of these are just dominated by the official Twitter accounts. You have TrekCore.com, the Trek Writers Room, at Star Trek Writers Room, whatever it's called, at Star Trek CBS, at Star Trek Discovery. They constantly post like GIFs and other little things. It really dominates the Twitter feed. But there are some users that are also utilizing that hashtag and using it. Okay, so I'm seeing one here at Matt Mira that came out by the most recent episode that says, I honestly think that tonight's episode of Star Trek gave me everything I ever wanted out of an episode of Star Trek.
Interesting.
But that's pretty high praise.
Yeah, that's quite high.
There's another funny one here that says, motion to call all food made from kelpians Sarushi.
Blueberry.
Okay. I like that one a lot. Yes.
It's so gross. And I get that they were bred to be domesticated animals, at some point in evolutionary history, but they're still sentient beings. And I get that the Terrans have done some really terrible things. I've never seen them eat sentient species before.
No, I haven't either.
That's pretty
It's
terrible.
very interesting, yeah. I don't doubt it.
I guess, but it was like on the edge of too far for me when I was like, oh, really?
In some way, it's weird because you'd think that them being such a xenophobic species, an overlord to everything, that they wouldn't want to ingest things like that.
Interesting. So what about, there's a lot of Twitter talk also about Prime Lorca.
Okay.
Do you think we might see Prime Lorca, or is he just dead?
Boy, at this point, anything could happen. I believe that they're going to. I mean, and the other sense is, where's the Terran Burnham? Is whatever happened transporter malfunction or whatever he said it was? Did they switch places? Did he actually die on his ship like he said? Maybe. Who knows? I feel like Star Trek could do this. They always do this all the time. I'm just ready for it. I'm ready for the cliffhanger at the end of the season that Lorca comes back and, or something like that. But like we were discussing earlier, I also feel that with Jason Isaacs being on the show, much like they did in Star Wars Rebels, they have to pay him a lot of money. And so this might have been the end of Lorca forever,
Just for budgetary reasons?
For budgetary reasons, yeah. And
Okay.
he's a good character. It was a little weird. It was a little heavy-handed, I feel. Because I've heard a lot of stories about they're trying to placate to the Chinese audience quite a bit. So like the Shenzhou and Giorgio, and the fact that his parents or his ancestors had fortune cookie factories. Did you notice all that? I don't mind it.
So one Asian character, one Asian ship name,
And an Americanized cookie.
Yeah, from a planet that is like half Asian.
Yeah.
I think that's racism. I think people saying that they're placating to Chinese audiences it's ridiculous. I think this is realistic.
Right.
I think anytime you see certain people, it's the casts that are not homogenous, that are not all white, in particular, go, they're kowtowing, or they're trying to whatever.
Right.
It's the reality we live in, and it's the future. It's going to be the reality.
Yeah.
And
true.
Trying to deny that is just not going to work.
I mean, props to him though. He blended in quite well, I have to say. But I think he's good at that. Terrans are good at manipulation.
Oh, sure.
So.
Oh, and so the one thing he couldn't hide, of course, was his eyes. Which brought up a theory I saw. Are Terrans really just depressed? Are they all suffering from seasonal affective disorder all the time? Is that why they've been so angry for all their evolutionary history, that they just don't get enough sun?
That could very well be. That's why I want to know. Like, is it because no other Terran show have we seen it? Is that way, right?
Yeah, no.
Okay, so.
But if you look at the Deep Space Nine episodes, they're all pretty much indoors or in ships.
Indoors, and it's dark. Yeah,
So
there's candles. They have candles everywhere.
Yeah, so it fits.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We haven't seen it, but just because we haven't seen them shy away from light doesn't mean it's not a factor.
No, right, yeah. And I kept thinking, man, what would do that? Is like there's something wrong with our sun? Is our atmosphere different? Maybe from over pollution, like just over the eons. They don't have enough light, or they're not used to it, or it's just the problem is that the evolutionary step it would take to have something like that, it would have been hundreds of thousands of years in the making. So I'm like, what would have happened that changed that?
Yeah, it's a different universe, so who knows?
Right.
Any one little thing.
Right. Just pull my eyes out and put fake ones in there,
Well, I think that speaks to the fact that it's not a parallel universe in the way that the TNG episode parallels shows.
Right.
where it's just a split and different action, different kinds. I don't think it's like that. I don't think
No.
it was one thing happened differently and now it's a different. It feels to me like it's just fundamentally different universe with some slightly different laws of physics or
Yeah,
laws of the universe
something
that
like
are just
that.
slightly different that impact the evolution of everything.
Infinite amount of universes, I think, is also like there could be another Terran Empire that their eyes are fine.
That's also a possibility. Yeah, I think they made it pretty clear that it's been the same mirror universe that's been in.
Oh yeah,
Maybe maybe the universes are layered in a way, and that's the next one closest to us, which is why we get to it so often. They talked about the Defiant crossing over, so.
and they purposely put the Defiance model in that looks completely different than the Defiant we're used to.
Oh, was it?
Of course. Oh yeah.
I didn't know this.
Because the Defiant was. I mean, we basically got our first look at the Constitution class, where it was very similar, but then the cells were a little angled differently, and it looked completely different than the Kelvin timeline. And I always think, oh, did they do that for a reason? They're definitely saying this is not the Kelvin timeline. And they're showing that there's the Defiant. That must be the way the Constitutions look. So I wonder if they're going to go anywhere with that. I doubt it, but it was very interesting to see.
Yeah. What else we got?
Okay, so. How about the Lorca twist?
That your dance move?
I feel like it should be. I feel like there's the Picard maneuver and then there's the Lorca twist.
Okay.
How did you see it coming? I think you did. If we discussed a tiny bit, but I kept saying, "Oh, that's not right. He's so evil." Every time we would talk, the very little that we did, it was always evil. Man, where are you getting that from? He sounds like he's a little, a little insane, but I definitely didn't see that, so I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
I wish I could claim I did predict it, but I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I just thought he was just evil, and I thought he was real out of place because of that. What really kept getting me was us, the audience, saw how evil he was,
Right.
but the crew didn't. So then when they found out that the mirror Lorca, apparently it wasn't quite true, but when they found the mirror Lorca was some sort of like rebellion, my first instinct with that was, oh, he must be like fighting against the Terran Empire because they're evil, and he's kind of a good guy in the mirror universe.
Right.
Which to me, if I was Burnham and I heard that my captain was a good guy in the evil universe, I'd be like red flagging me and like, oh, maybe the Prime Lorca is actually a bad guy. You know what I mean? But apparently that's not quite. We found out later that he actually was also a bad guy.
Yeah.
There's just two different types of bad people fighting each other for an empire that's bad. So
I guess it could be levels of bad. Be like, I mean, not necessarily that he's the opposite, but I mean, we don't even know the Prime Lorca yet.
Yeah.
But that was my thought. It was that it wasn't necessarily that he was evil. It was he had a goal. He had saw his entire crew destroyed and killed and blown up, and never gonna let that happen again. Is kind of how I thought. Very much like Jellicoe, where his way is the highway, and he would do anything to not see his crew destroyed, killed, and it doesn't matter what happens. I liked that side of him, but at the same time, it was like, are they going to do something? And then the whole thing with the Admiral, where they brought up the Admiral, and she was going to say, oh, if you don't, do whatever, you're going to be taken away, and we're going to replace you. And so obviously...
And then he conveniently made sure she died.
Right, exactly.
Like, that was really when I was like, okay, he's not just like a bad captain, he's a bad person. Like, he's evil.
At that point, yeah.
But I didn't think he was from the mirror universe. Yeah, I wish I would have called that. But no, I didn't.
Well, I didn't even see the universe coming in. I mean, I kind of thought, well, the Mycelium network, boy, this is a good exploration into maybe there's going to be an accident and they're going to go to some weird place or something, like they always do. But I never expected it to be. I mean, when I saw the Terran Empire, I was freaking out. Because I like the Terran Empire, I like the idea of it. I guess I'm very much in. I love Star Wars. Sorry, but I love the Empire. As I'm the Empire.
I love both Star Wars and Star Trek.
Okay, yeah, okay. So when I saw that, and I thought, oh man, they're bringing back the good stuff. The things that people love.
I mean, In a Mirror Darkly, the Enterprise fighter was probably the best episodes.
Probably. I would second that to an extent. I loved not only because they showed the mirror universe, but they actually delved into it farther. It was the crew. It wasn't like we're here by accident. Very much like, going off a little topic here, Man of Steel. People rap to Man of Steel all the time, but I love the fact that they actually showed Krypton. It's just things like that. I love when they do the backstory. I love when they show how their lives are.
Okay, fair enough. I don't like Man of Steel either. So okay, but that's a good point though. Yeah.
It was weird, but how many times have we seen Krypton? I know we're off topic, but I'm just saying.
No, it's fine. I mean, Man of Steel was a reboot, and that's what we're here to talk about.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
I think that speaks to just how I mentioned I mentioned X-Files offhand. You mentioned Roseanne coming up offhand.
Yep.
There's a lot of stuff
There's
out
a
there.
lot of
I'm
stuff,
excited to
yeah.
get into it. It's only the first episode. So we might do another Star Trek episode, especially with the second season, maybe even for this season, though, if we have more stuff to talk about. Yeah. So I want to get this on record. Predictions. We have 2 episodes left. What do you think's going to happen?
Obviously, in my opinion, they're going to save the Federation, and they're going to kill Philippa. I feel like Burnham has to kill Philippa or something. She brought her back. She's going to commit atrocities, or try to, or maybe do. I don't know. And then she's going to be forced to kill her. I feel.
Okay.
I don't know. What do you think?
I feel like if it was any other Star Trek show, they would save the Empire by the end of the season. But it's not. I you thought the jump they made to get away from the Klingons was going to be back to Starfleet, and then they went to the main universe. And then you thought they were going to go back home at the right time, but then it was in the future.
Right.
And not only that, but the war is being lost.
Yep.
So I think there's going to be something else. I think it's going to be like, oh, another terrible thing happened.
Yeah.
And that way it's a good cliffhanger.
That's true. Or is it as simple as, let's just jump again?
I hope not.
I hope not either. It doesn't seem to be that way because, the mycelial network's back up and running, apparently, that we know of.
I'm not 100% sure how they saved the network by blowing that thing up. I didn't quite understand that.
Basically, that generator under the Charon was continually running. It was killing the
Just by turning it off, they
So
stopped it.
by destroying it, basically
suppose.
restored the past, which protected the future, okay.
Okay, yeah. I guess Damus did say it was regenerating while it seemed weird, but it
the
was
whole
there, I guess.
don't feel bad because the whole mycelial network thing is weird.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. It's interesting if we could actually do something like that, but I feel that's my thing. It's more science fantasy now than it is science fiction.
Yeah, and that's a big staple of Star Trek. I've heard writers talk about it, actors in the shows talk about it, is that they really do try to stick with good science as best they can, which has always been really, really exciting. You get to see current theories kind of explored or played out in the show.
I on that too, I just want to bring this up real quick. Engineering doesn't feel comfortable to me. Have you noticed it's different? Well, okay. In Enterprise, there was a warp so you saw the warp core, and TOS, you saw the warp core kind of. TNJ, you saw the warp core. You saw the warp core. We have not seen the warp core once in this show, and whenever we go into it, it's always the mycelial chamber center focus.
Because that's not main engineering.
Well, but I thought he said he pointed to the warp core and said this is.
I think he's pointing through a wall.
Okay, I hope that's the case because it just doesn't feel like engineering to me.
Right. the writers have gone on record as saying that is a engineering laboratory.
Okay.
It's kind of Stamets' little pet project.
Good.
It's not main engineering.
Good, but then that still begs the question: where's the warp core and why haven't we seen it?
They said we'll see it soon. They did say that too.
Okay.
And they mentioned, I think warp for the first, maybe not first, but in a long time, first time they mentioned warp, I think was this episode where you can use it together. And I didn't get that at all. How warp was interacting with.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. How can you go to warp and then transfer into dimensions?
It doesn't make sense to me at all. But I think when he was, I know what you're talking about, where he said when you use it with the warp core and he gestured to the side of him, I think he was pointing through a wall to the next room over.
That makes more sense.
That was my take on it.
I took it as because TOS, it was basically a screened wall and that showed the inside of the warp core. Right. I thought that's how they were doing it because there's a big circle on the wall that makes it it lights up and so I just thought but it's a huge jump from the Enterprise to Discovery's warp core, and I just that's the focus of engineering is the warp core, the hum of that engine.
Yeah, I think that they've been focusing on the spore drive a lot, but now that I think they're gonna be winding that down because they see the risks in it, and hopefully bringing it more in line with what was going on in TOS and the rest of the Star Trek canon. Yeah, the writer said we'll see the warp drive soon, which is encouraging. Maybe in the next 2 episodes, maybe not next season. I don't know yet though.
That being said, I did watch a video of a guy that was calculating the warp jumps. And he was actually saying this is the most accurate Star Trek show he's ever seen based on that, because there was they were jumping 25 million kilometers or something like that, and they went to warp 1 in the shuttle when they were going in the Terran universe, and it took them 1 minute through 31 seconds, and it's exactly what it would have taken at the speed of light.
Wow.
And it was
Warp 1 speed of light.
Yeah.
In case you weren't a super fan, Warp 1 is the speed of light. Yes.
So it was wow, okay, that's cool.
Well, I've read that there's definitely some inconsistencies in the other shows.
Of course.
I mean, in Enterprise, they went to Klingon, went to Kronos in a day or something, which made no sense.
Right.
because they were on warp 4.
Right,
So-
exactly. Yeah, it would take forever.
And for those of you also, again, who are super fans, warp 2 is not twice the speed of light. It is exponentially higher, and each number gets exponentially higher. So, which is why the difference between warp 9 and 9.5 is a lot.
Right.
For
It's
example, a
Yeah.
lot. Anyway,
And so I do like the warp effects. Like, let's talk about
Sure.
effects of
Okay.
together. I love the warp effects. I feel like that is much more intense. It's very reminiscent of Star Wars. The whole tunnel and you're tunneling through space basically. I like that. I'm not so big on the phasers. I'm hoping they're gonna bring phasers back. Like we've gone to the pulse cannons again, but
I see what you mean, because it's supposed to.
yeah, because again, I feel like man, they've been hinting so much at the Kelvin timeline. Whereas in science, it would be a lot harder to create a bolt of plasma or a bolt of whatever they're throwing rather than a beam of something.
Right.
So, I like it. The torpedoes are cool. They're fine. But I feel like the cannons need to go.
I like the designs of the phasers. I like that you can see when they switch from stun to kill.
Yeah.
Have you noticed
yeah,
that?
Yeah.
Blue is stun, red is
Yeah.
kill, red is dead.
Uh-huh.
So obviously in the mirror universe they were all red, but there was a scene in I can't remember which episode number, but when Burnham was aboard the Klingon ship and she switched it over to red right
Yes.
before she shot, and it was like, oh. And, if you're paying attention, if you're a big fan, it gives you something else to kind of look at and be like, oh wow,
Yeah.
that's when she decided.
Right.
That was the moment. So
Yeah.
I like that. It's kind of fun. You're right though. The beam, the steady
Right.
beam has been a staple for a long time until more recently. They try to make it look more like modern guns, I guess. I don't know what the reasoning is. TOS, TNG era, the whole thing has always been
Right.
like it's always been like a beam coming out and staying until you let go of the trigger or whatever it is.
I could see personal hand phasers being a bolt like Star Wars. That's why I wonder if they're doing it like that because it's a gun. It represents a gun a lot more than a phaser. Yeah. Nobody knows what a phaser is, But man, a bolt of something, I can get along with that. I don't know, but
I love that phasers aren't just weapons, though. And you see it some TOS a lot in TNG that they're tools.
Right.
Like they're very utilitarian.
Oh yeah.
A phaser burst at this level for this much time can do that. Like, I can't know how many times Jordy and Data discussed phaser settings to do a job. It's like, wow, it's like a tool. It's not just a weapon.
Saving lives, cutting things open,
creating heat.
Right.
I mean, you can go on and on.
And then endless.
But when it's a bolt, like you say, if that's what you want to call it, yeah, it's a weapon, and that's all you can do with it.
Right.
You can destroy things.
Exactly.
That's unfortunate.
And again, speaking of the way they switch from stun to kill, very reminiscent of Kelvin. It was very physical. Like this one's more of a light, but in Kelvin, the gun flipped. You've watched it again.
I remember the flip, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's like again, everything's reminding me of that, and I don't know if they're doing it because it reminds people of that. But the old crowd, the old fans know, of course, that's what it does. But the new fans have only ever seen the switch like that, and I can see that pull. But at the same time, it's like makes more sense. Again, I would have to look this up, but from a scientific standpoint, people were like, "Oh, lasers are beams, not phasers," because it's like compressed plasma or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it makes no sense for it to be a beam in that sense, like Star Wars. It's compressed to ban a gas, and they compress it so much, and then they fire it, and it comes out, but it dissipates as it goes. But and I wonder if that's what they're trying to get a hold of. They're trying to get a hold of how successful Star Wars is in that effect. Because they're guns. They're not weird scientific phasers. Yeah. Science fiction phasers, I guess.
I don't know. So where do you see the future of the franchise going?
I see it continuing. I see it going up and up. I mean, as Patrick Stewart said, there should never be a year or a day or a decade without a Star Trek. I agree.
Profound words from a profound man.
It very much is. I'm sorry, Sir Patrick. I said it wrong.
Sir Patrick Stewart. So we have the Discovery, and then we have this Tarantino movie.
Yes.
Coming up.
Yes.
So let's talk real quick about that, because that's part of the. I think it's part of the.
I don't care what you say. I'm on board. I'm already watching it now.
I mean, I'm watching it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not gonna not see me watch a Star Trek. Like that's gonna.
Especially a Tarantino Star Trek.
But am I gonna be like excited and thinking good things, or am I going to be cautious and thinking, well, better prepare for the worst?
You're definitely going to be
cautious. That's
the
question for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to be cautious.
You're going to be cautious because it's Tarantino. But I feel like he could take it in directions that we would like. That would maybe not be a standard, but would definitely intrigue us.
I'm intrigued. So the biggest thing I'm intrigued about, I was really like, oh, when I first heard it, like, I don't know. The one way I'd be most excited about it was if it was post TNG era.
Yeah.
And the most exciting part about that is Sir Patrick Stewart, actually said, big fan of Tarantino. I wouldn't do Star Trek again unless, but his movie, I'd be in it. Now, how cool would it be to see a movie, instead of just bringing back the same cast in a movie,
Right.
having a whole new like story set in the Star Trek universe in that like Next Generation era, but a little bit after it, however many years it's been since it ended, since Voyager ended.
Oh yeah.
And you get the cameos, you get Patrick Stewart. Jonathan Frakes is still doing stuff. He directed some of these episodes, so you get some Riker maybe.
Some of the best episodes, I feel.
Yeah. Recently, a couple years ago, Michael Dorn was all about like, there's gonna be a Worf series. It's gonna be great, and I was super excited about it.
I was too.
It didn't happen,
No.
but maybe bring him in a movie for a quick little bit, and then have them pass it on to someone else, to a new crew or something. I'd love to see that.
I would love it. Yeah.
I would love to see that.
I would definitely love to see that. My
Now,
only
is it going to
fear-
be full of swearing, gore, and racism?
Probably.
I'm a little bit scared.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
I think how many times they can say that word. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to see.
Yeah.
I don't want to see Me Too Tarantino. I
Yeah.
don't like. I like some of his movies. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of them are like, oh.
That's what I'm saying. I would feel he has to stay in the canon, which I think he does fairly well with any show he does, or with any movie he makes. It's just the fact there's a lot of swearing and negative connotation. And what I'm fearing is it's going to be, their movie's going to be A Night in Sick Bay. If you remember from Enterprise.
That's a good episode.
Yeah,
I like
not get me wrong, it's a good episode, but he loves to do that. He loves to take one room, do an entire movie in one room, and which I would watch.
See, I actually would be more intrigued by that.
Okay, see, interesting, because I love that he does dialogue movies.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of his movies are just dialogue. I love that, but I like the Star Trek-esque of the action of the ships. I love watching the ships.
Oh, sure.
So that's my only fear, is that it's a one room thing.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I could see the apprehension there. I did love A Night in Sick Bay. For those of you who don't know, that's Star Trek Enterprise, where the captain was in sick bay with Dr. Phlox, who was a little unique.
Yeah.
It's a great episode.
It's a good episode, yeah. You're right.
It's similar to probably one of my favorite episodes ever, which is Data's Day, which is the whole where Data's narrating an episode of Next Generation, recounting his whole day. I just love it.
Yeah.
I always love Data anyway.
Yeah. Oh, Data, yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, like a bottle. That's interesting. I've always been really interested in seeing like a when you said it's different without the ships, it made me think of Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, which is kind of devoid of the space stuff because they're on Earth.
Right.
But I thought it was a really good movie, So obviously it's a fan favorite. A lot of people like it.
Yeah.
I would love to see a Star Trek series that takes place on Earth, personally.
Yeah.
But like instead of going past, like in the future, maybe like Starfleet Academy.
Yeah.
Follow some cadets going through the academy over in San Francisco. Do other places. I mean, they go in space too. Obviously, it's not going to be devoid of space. Yeah. I would just love to see what it's like on planet Earth in the 24th century or whatever century they choose to do it in.
I would definitely go along with that.
I would love it. That's like a craving of mine. I really liked Star Trek Into Darkness, how they looked at Earth. You had that in the beginning. They had some really great scenes there on Earth. I really liked that. I'd love to see more of that.
Yeah.
And so if Tarantino did something like that, that'd be great.
Oh yeah.
Because I think it's Picard retiring to his vines in France.
Right.
Because that one scene in the last episode was like an alternate future, so it's
Yeah.
so you don't know if it's going to happen or not. But let's say in the real timeline he was on Earth. That would be great for him to have this great Tarantino moment where like he's on Earth and there's stuff going on at the Academy or somewhere else on the planet.
Right.
I would love to see that personally. I think it's possible.
I feel like Tarantino can do good things because don't get me wrong, Inglourious Basterds, one of the best movies. I love that Tarantino film. I love Django. There's definitely things he can do, and unlike what was the one the most recent one, Hateful Eight.
Okay.
Hateful Eight, and the gist of Hateful Eight was they were snowed in a cabin. One of the guys was transporting a criminal, and the gist is people had gotten there first and they knew they were coming, so they had killed everyone and they taken their place basically. And so the movie it's not even joking, 3 hours long, and the whole thing takes place in one room, one cabin. And it's a brilliant exercise in dialogue to have all those different ways of performing in that one area. Mm-hmm. But I just don't think that's a good fit for Star Trek. So that's why I'm concerned. But I think he'll do a good job if he does it. I'm very excited either way.
I understand.
All right, so definitely looking forward to the last two episodes. We got Acting Captain Saru,
Yep.
The bridge, that's fun. Do you think that Michael Burnham's going to be officer again?
I do. Either at the end of this season or next season sometime.
Yeah. I'd like to see her be an officer again.
Yeah.
Mutineer Burnham.
I feel, I don't know, I feel like her mutiny was, it's not just, but there was definitely reason behind it, that she was trying to prevent something.
I'm not going to like try to adjudicate what she did, but
Right.
I just think for story purposes, it would be really nice to have her, it would be nice for not always just be specialist Burnham. It's kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, I would love to see it.
This is already different because, the main character isn't the captain, so we already got some weird things going on there. I don't know. We'll see.
The other part of that, the reason I think she'll become an officer is because the Federation has been reduced to nothing.
Very true.
They need officers. They might give her a captain. They might make her first officer under Saru. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, Giorgio was ready to give her own ship or recommend her for her own ship or however it works. Right. So she's definitely qualified.
Yeah. They need her now.
And now they need her.
So
we'll be curious to see who's left. We saw some teasers in the promo, but see who's left in the Federation, what's going on, what the real status is. Has it reached Earth? Like kind of see how it's really in real life folding out.
Right.
For regular people in the Federation, how they're going to resist this Klingon advancement. Seems insurmountable.
It does.
Looking at the graphics they had at the end there, I'm not sure what kind of rabbit they're gonna pull out of a hat.
And I was like, oh man, the Federation's like, are we gone, or is there only like 3 planets left, or what? But they're like, oh, our forces have been reduced by 1/3, and we've lost 20% of our fleet. And I'm like, it's a lot.
That's true. Because you saw that graphic on the screen where it was like closing in, and then they said that 1/3, 20%. That's not as bad as it looked. It's still a lot.
It's a lot, yeah. Especially if you've lost 20% and they've lost almost nothing. It's still a lot.
Yeah, I guess it's curious how much they've lost.
Right. So I'm hesitant, but I'm sure we'll come out of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be curious to see what the state of the Klingons are. That's something we forgot to talk about earlier, about the differences. Oh. In this show, the Klingons speak Klingon.
I completely forgot about that.
Imagine that. When they're talking to each other and not humans, they speak Klingon, which can be a little frustrating when you're trying to read it.
Kind of, yeah.
Up on the screen very quickly. I sometimes I'll see a word because I know some Klingon words and stuff. I have the old Klingon dictionary that came out back when the movies were being made 90s. Years ago, and I want to look at my Klingon dictionary real quick, but then I can't because I'm trying to watch and read too the English subtitles. It is cool to see. It's a little bit funny because they're wearing this makeup and teeth, so they'll kind of talk with you up. It's like
it's very guttural.
Yeah. What do they really evolve to talk so mumbly? You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying too. They always had that problem with aliens. Every time they had a full face mask or something, it's very wispy. They can't articulate very well. So I feel like that's a problem. I feel like they need to fix that.
While we're on it, and differences again. Nothing's changed more in Star Trek than the appearance of Klingons.
Yes.
Every single time.
Yep.
So what do you think about these most recent ones?
I like them. I'm going to go on a limb here. I love their culture. I've always loved the Klingons. I like to see them going farther away from human-like.
A racist term for people that look like humans, yeah.
A
human-centric term. I always thought if I hear the aliens say humanoid, I'm
wait a minute. No.
I think was it Chang? Someone pointed that out in the movies.
Yeah.
It's like thank you.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, why would they? But it gives them an identity. It gives them something different. Their speech. I also, speaking of that, I love the way that they showed the universal translator rather than just it happening. She actually pulled it out and had it.
Because that was before it was as well perfected. Right. Yeah, so that was cool.
I love that. But the only thing I can't get around, which I'm starting to like, is their ships. Okay. They're so different. At least with Starfleet, they're very, very similar. But with Klingons, they're made of rock. They're very large, yeah, but they're made of rock. They're covered with the bodies of their dead, which to me gives them legitimacy to the Klingons. I mean, they're warriors, fanatics. So I like that aspect of it, but I don't know if I necessarily like the changes in all the ships. Does it make a lot of sense to make a ship out of rock? I don't know.
Well, one defense of that I read was that there's a lot of different Klingon houses, and maybe they all have different ships.
True.
And
Very true.
and at this point, that one house is kind of in charge. The ships look like that, but as culture changes pretty quick, another house takes over. Then they all start building ships that look like
That's
that,
true.
and you get the D7, D9 Warbird type
Yeah,
look.
because this is still way before that. This is before
Sure.
the unification of all the houses, right?
Of course, yeah.
Okay,
So-
that makes sense. Yeah,
They're really tribal, so they might all have different ships right now.
that's true.
Which
Yeah.
explains some of the culture differences, like having the bodies on the ship, like you said, compared to in TNG when the Klingons were like, the bodies mean nothing.
Right.
Dispose of it how you wish.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting. But I did see one thing I liked, and then not that it was more of a hint though, because it's always been thought of as when the Romulans and Klingons had their war.
Yeah.
The Klingons stole the technology.
That's what I always believed.
Right. Well, and so if you look, some of their smaller ships are birds of prey.
Okay.
The almost exact design of a Romulan ship,
Sure.
or probably the way it looks now.
Right.
So I thought that was very interesting. It was a very good nod to if
Yeah.
that's what they were doing.
Yeah, I always assumed that there's been a lot of influence between the two. That's why they're warbirds, birds of prey,
Birds of prey, yeah.
or there's some similarities. I can't remember where do they say that about the Klingons taken from Romulans? I can't remember if I read that in lore or if I saw that on canon. I can't remember at this
I'm
point
pretty
because
sure. I'm pretty sure it was a canon.
because we both had the same memory of it. We
Yeah,
didn't talk about it before,
yeah.
so I'm pretty sure it's canon.
I want to say TNG, somewhere in TNG. They just described it, or Worf had described it or something. Maybe not. I don't. But I don't. I know it is canon though, because the books. There's a lot of like the sectional books talk about the ships.
Yeah, but
and-
books never canon.
True, but there was something. I swear to God, there was something. There was a video or something they had talked about it, because they were like, well, why does that ship look so similar to that ship?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, because they stole it. Oh, okay. You know.
Yeah, I mean, we know that Klingons and Romulans have been fighting for generations, so it makes sense that they
Right,
have
right.
stuff. So I'll answer what I think about the Klingons looks in a sec, but you mentioned stuff about the culture, and made me think about in the first episode, and then that speech about protecting the Klingon culture from being watered down by Federation values.
Oh, God.
I actually, when I saw that, I was like, oh, I kind of sided with the Klingons now.
Yeah.
Like, it made me think of, like, indigenous species that,
Yeah.
like, they have a culture, like, totally evaporated by empirical forces that come in and just, like, to colonize. Like, the Klingons are fear being colonized.
Right. Yeah.
So they're fighting back. I don't agree with all their methods, that's
of
up to
course,
debate.
yeah.
But, like, I was kind of like, oh, yeah, they're fearing colonization.
Right.
Like, that's kind of legitimate, actually. So that was because they're not just this like mindless war. Like they never really have been. That people want to make them into that, but they're not.
Right.
Like they have art, they have poetry, they have science, and they have a strong culture they want to hold on to.
Very honorable people. And that begs the question, what was the Federation doing for them to... Were they doing something to them? Imagine they were. But were they
I think they saw it
encroaching?
happening.
I'm sure. Either through travel or trade or like you said, colonization too close to their borders, something like that, I'm sure. But obviously they did something for the Klingons to warrant such an attack.
Well, yeah, and you could touch on it earlier, I think, where you talked about some of the aliens don't act human enough to be, so they change their ways to act more. They kind of code switch and become more human.
Right.
The
English.
Andorians
Right.
start acting more like pink-skins, or whatever the case is. So, and they mentioned like they these filthy alliance with the Dorians who they hate, of course, and the Vulcans who they don't like.
Right.
So I think they just fear being assimilated. They fear assimilation. I can see that.
I can completely understand it. But then again, on the Trump question, is it the same thing? Is it make the Klingon Empire great again? Just, stop the influx of foreigners.
I feel like it's the opposite. I don't think
You
it's
do?
influx.
Okay.
I think it's stop from being invaded and taken over. The difference is that the thing is people coming into the empire and weakening the old culture, whereas the Klingon thing and what's the problem with a lot of Aboriginal cultures is the empire coming in.
Yeah.
Those people coming in the empire and watering it down.
Okay.
So they say it's the empire coming in and totally just evaporating the current culture and it doesn't exist anymore. That's what they're afraid of.
So I could see where that's not necessarily a Trump thing, but it's still, it feels very weird. It feels very similar, but I can understand that.
Yeah. As far as how they look, I'm pretty okay with it.
Yeah.
If you look at the ridges, they're not that much bigger than like Worf's ridges. The thing is, the difference is that they don't have hair.
They don't have hair.
So you see more of it.
Right.
I always assumed that Worf's ridges kept going under his hair.
Oh, yeah.
So to me, I think the bigger thing is that they just don't have hair.
Yeah.
And so it makes the ridges look more pronounced.
And their heads, if you've noticed, their heads are very...
They go back more in the back.
Yeah.
But again, so many Klingons have that long hair. It's really, in TNG era, it's very common for Klingons to have that long hair.
Right.
Maybe you just didn't notice it. You know what I mean?
Most likely, yeah. I guarantee you it's probably just the hair.
So that's my thing about that is that it's not that different. It's really just boils down to that they're bald.
Even the Into Darkness and the Kelvin timeline, those Klingons looked familiar. They looked similar, at least, to these ones. Their ridges were the way they were. Their heads were shaped similar.
Sure.
But in some way, I wish the Kelvin Klingons were in this one because they looked less like an alien. They were... the identity was still there. I feel like the Klingon, or at least they look like Klingons.
Sure. And again, like we said, they've changed every single time.
Yeah.
They tried in Enterprise, they tried explaining it with a canon explanation of that genetic thing, that virus. Okay, maybe that explains it, maybe it doesn't. You know, he mentioned there being surgeries would be really common for years, and so maybe some Klingons had surgery, some didn't. Maybe.
It's no use explaining it.
It's makeup. You know, Roddenberry, he gave a speech one time that back when the movies were coming out, I think, and the first differences were being made, and he was like, you know, the original series, we didn't have a budget, so like they had gold skin and mustaches. That's the best we could do. Like now, yeah. So like that's the best we could do. So the movies, those are more in line with what he wanted, and Worf kind of looked pretty similar at first. He changed a little bit.
Yeah.
And then his ridges kind of became the norm after that. I think because people just thought, oh, he's looking on all Klingons look the same.
Right.
Whereas before that, ridges were always different, and they were a little bit later. But
yeah,
again, I think it's all out of universe explanations.
Oh yeah.
I'm done worrying about it.
Right. Yeah. I don't
I'm
either.
over it.
Yeah. That's again in the Enterprise episode. It was like, why are you explaining this? I understand what you're trying to do.
It almost makes it worse.
It makes it worse because then you sit there and think, well, wait a minute, their ridges are completely different. They're different species altogether, and a lot of them. It makes no sense. Don't explain it.
Okay. On that note, so I wanted to take a quick look at what's going to happen. What's next for the podcast? We've been really excited to start this for a while now. Glad to finally have done it. I know I'd like to do an X-Files for the new season. I think it's a good season. I liked the last one. That was kind of the first of the revival seasons. I'd like to go over those. We're both excited about Roseanne.
Yes. Very excited.
We watched that together in college, I think it was. We're really thrilled about the new one. We'll see if it's any good, but I'm excited to at least watch it.
Yeah.
And like I said before, there's tons of new stuff coming out post-original content world, folks. So, you know, I'm open to doing movies, not just TV shows, whatever it is. So, yeah, stay tuned to see what we're going to do next. We've been your host. I'm Nathan Grayjack.
And I'm Eric Zajac.
Please follow me on Twitter.
Please.
Please. I need more followers at Grayjack, GRAJEK. And more importantly, follow the podcast at Revival_podcast because Survival was taken.
Please, by all means, post and geek out with us. You all are welcome.
Hashtag Survival Revival. Hashtag Star Trek Discovery.
See you next time.
Okay, bye.